I want to say, as a member of the steering committee for FOBUS, a thank you to the Chevy Chase Community Association for hosting this and for hosting our earlier in-person meeting at Blessed Sacrament, which was well attended. And I also want to encourage people to consider joining CCCA. They do a lot of work. We do a lot of wonderful things. I'm a member too. And we also put on Chevy Chase Day. We don't get any money from the city, unlike the ANC, and membership doesn't cost too much. So I ask you to consider that. And then one housekeeping thing, we're going to have quite a bit of time for Q&A after the presentation that Cal is going to give. So please hold all your questions until he has finished, and then raise your hand and we will get to them. Okay, I think with that, ready to turn it over to one other thing that I would like to mention while we're dealing with this little technical problem is we're planning to have another meeting for feedback because WMATA is still making changes to their bus network. And so there's going to be time for you to tell us, as well as WMATA, what do you not like? What would you like to see changed about the current bus arrangement? We think this could be a powerful way to make things better for our community and bus transit. That's a meeting that we're starting to work on now, and we'll be announcing that in the coming weeks. And so, if you're a bus rider, you might want to start writing down ways you'd like to see things improve, like add a bus stop here. This is too infrequent. This line, we don't like this route. Things like that, and we'll gather that together. And if we speak together as a community here at Chevy Chase, I think we have a greater chance of moving the needle down there at WMATA.
My name is Michaela Platzer. I'm also a member of the FOBUS steering committee, along with Jim Nash and Cal and John Wheeler, who's also on the call, and Megan Givens as well. And I really just want to encourage people to spread the word about buses. So I think one of the key challenges we have in our community is that not enough people view buses as a viable mode of transportation, and it actually works pretty well. You know, there's glitches, of course, but it can really meet some of your transit needs. And I'd really encourage people to get on the bus and try to use it. I think some people have a false view of buses, and they believe a bus is not for them because they may have a car in front of their house. But just because you have a car at home doesn't necessarily mean that a bus isn't an option. So I just wanted to throw that out and really encourage people to use the bus. And I just wanted to say one more thing, which I'm sure Cal will address. But for example, the C83, for those of you who may not know, actually runs on weekends now, and actually runs late into the evening, which are two things that we didn't have before. So those of you who might be downtown trying to get back up to Chevy Chase, DC, Barnaby Woods, all of a sudden, the bus might be an option. It doesn't come as frequently as it should, in my opinion, but at least it's an option, and it's a big step in the right direction. Thank you. I see Cal is back, so I'll be quiet now.
So I'll be the next person in line to welcome everybody to this call. Well, we have 50 folks on this call. It's amazing. Just a bit of my history. I've been riding these buses since my family moved into Chevy Chase just before my 10th birthday. So that was 60 years ago, 60 some years ago. And so I've been sort of a bus nut ever since. When I go to a new city, I check out. The first thing I do is get the transit map. So when I have to visit a new place. So that's that. And if you're in Chevy Chase, raise your hand. That way we'll be able to just get a count real quick. Great. The next thing is, are you in some other part of Ward 3? Raise your hand. Okay, so most of you are from some other place. It'd be interesting to find out where. Okay, because I only see 8 hands. Put your hands down, please. Are you from Maryland? Raise your hand. You in Maryland? 1, 2, 3. Okay. And if you're, okay, 4. And if you're from some other part of the city, raise your hand. Like Ward 4. Okay. So, great. Thank you very much. I don't think I saw 50 hands go up, but of the ones I saw, more of you were from Chevy Chase, a slightly smaller number from other parts of Ward 3, and then 4 each from Maryland and other parts of the city. So welcome. It helps me to understand the order of presenting these things. So I want to nip one thing in the bud because I didn't get very far into my presentation when I did this the last time. When people said, why did WMATA do this? So I wrote to WMATA and I asked them. I got one of my contacts at WMATA, and I'm going to read you what she wrote me back. Metrobus was implemented in 1973, and over the years we have made improvements to many routes and lines. As the region grew with more people living in the DMV, Metro service area increased and people commute differently than they did 50 years ago. It was time to look at the entire bus network as a whole and see where best to maximize and improve service, increase connections to existing and new places where people want to go, continue to align services with our transit partner bus networks, and have routes be more frequent, efficient, safer, and reliable. So that's their answer to why they did this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with working my way south. I'm going to start with Chevy Chase, both DC and Maryland. I'm going to work my way south and west through the west side of the park. If you have things you want to talk about in other parts of the city, you'll probably have to wait till near the end. I'm going to present. If you have a question where you don't understand something I said, then you can raise your hand to ask a clarifying question. But otherwise, I'm going to repeat what Jim said and ask you to hold your questions until the Q&A section, where we can try to answer all of your questions as possible. I am going to share the map. And many of you have seen this map. This is the standard WMATA map for DC, for the new network in DC. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Maryland, and just first, because we do have some Maryland people, and as I said, I'm going to work my way southward. The biggest change that has the biggest impact on many of us is the removal of the L8, which went from Friendship Heights all the way to Aspen Hill. That no longer exists. The number 1 bus, the ride-on number 1 bus, still runs from Friendship Heights up to East-West Highway or to Leland Street, depending on whether it, some of them go through Rollingwood and some of them just go straight up to East-West Highway. But if you want to go farther north, you'll have to change buses. There's no way around it. And you have some choices. There's a Metro bus that replaces the C30, the ride-on 34, the D96, which starts, I believe, down in Potomac Park and ends in Bethesda. So this piece of the 34 is still handled by Metrobus. I took it the other day. It's not bad. It runs every 20 minutes. And then you'll have to change to this thing, which is known as the M22. And the M22 is a very long route that goes between Bethesda and Olney. It goes up Connecticut Avenue to Kensington, to Wheaton, to Glenmont, to Aspen Hill. It does not go straight up Connecticut from Kensington to Aspen Hill. That's going to be covered by some ride-on service, um, some new ride-on service. And so if you're here and you know, somewhere here and you want to get up here, you either take the number 1 bus up, which runs about every 30 or 35 minutes, and then transfer to this bus, the M22, or you go to Friendship Heights, take the D96 up. So it's either going to be 1 or 2 transfers depending on how you slice it. Um, the number 1 bus and the number 11 bus that go to Silver Spring are unchanged. That was surprising to me. The bus to Sibley Hospital on the Maryland side, the bus to Cabin John, that's all intact. So I've told you the major 2 changes that are happening in Maryland. So now, for the bulk of you who are in Chevy Chase, we have 5 routes, 3 of them which run all day and 2 of them which run only in rush or school hours. And the D70 is our north-south line. That replaces the L2. That does not go through Adams Morgan. It just goes straight down Connecticut all the way to Farragut. And it goes under DuPont Circle. When I go into the details of these routes later, I will show you what it looks like down there because there's a significant bus stop gap in the downtown area there. There's also the D80, which replaces the 31 from Friendship Heights. Same routing, same frequency. So these D routes haven't really changed much. The D82, which is the 33, which goes to Foggy Bottom, or that's the same. They haven't really changed much there. So our neighborhood routes in Chevy Chase are really the 2 all-day ones are going to be the C83 and the C85. So the C83 is a bit of the old E4 combined with the northernmost piece of the M4. And that route starts in Friendship Heights, like it does now, Western Avenue, McKinley Street, but instead of going all the way across McKinley, it now detours at Nevada Avenue with no stops on it on Nevada Avenue, and then goes up Nebraska Avenue. And then when it gets to Nebraska and Utah, it starts a clockwise loop that goes northbound up Utah, northbound up Western, and southbound down Nebraska with a stop at Knollwood along the way, and then goes back and picks up the loop and continues the reversal all the way back. That bus runs every 30 minutes during the week, and as Michaela pointed out, we now have weekend service up here, which we didn't have before. It's every 60 minutes at the moment. We're going to see if we can try to get that frequency better, especially since people are going to need to be transferring to get to other places here. The C85, which replaces the school time version of the M4, runs during rush hours only, and it goes from Pinehurst Circle down Utah, down Nebraska, straight down Nebraska, all the way to and makes what the M4 does, goes around Jackson Reed on Chesapeake and 40th by the Wawa. And instead of going to Sibley, it continues down Wisconsin Avenue and then through Cathedral, the bottom part of New Mexico Avenue, not where the medical appointments are, zigzags its way through Glover Park, through northern part of Georgetown, goes west on Reservoir to pick up MacArthur High School. That's the reason for that. So people who have kids who go to MacArthur from up here or anywhere in the upper Northwest can use that bus to get their kids to MacArthur, and then it goes into Georgetown and ends up on the west side of the Foggy Bottom Metro Station on New Hampshire Avenue. Again, that's a rush hour bus, runs, I believe, every half hour. I should mention that Ramada has not finalized their fall schedule for when kids go back to school. They were concentrating on summer school until the launch. So there probably will be additional service for school kids come the fall. And of course, we'll update everybody, they'll update everybody, and we'll get a lot of updating happening then. So that's the C83 and the C85. The C81 is our second major neighborhood route besides the C83. This replaces the bulk of the E4 line from Foggy Bottom, Kennedy Street and whatnot to Military. But when it gets to Nebraska, instead of going up 30th place in McKinley, it goes down Nebraska all the way. And this one bypasses and stays in front of Jackson Reed on Nebraska Avenue and then continues all the way to Sibley Hospital. So it's really like most of the M4, except for not actually going to the Tenleytown Metro. And when I go through details, I'll talk about where the stops are to get to that metro station. So that's an all-day bus, runs every 20 minutes. I should also mention that C83, in addition to running on weekends, also runs late at night. It will have service till 11 o'clock most nights, and including the weekends. I think it's 10:30 if I'm not mistaken. So that's good. And then the last route, the fifth route, is the C87, which is another rush hour route. This replaces one of the school bus routes. I believe it's the D31. This starts in Silver Spring, comes down 16th Street, goes across Military, where it passes by Ingleside and whatnot, and also goes down Military, Nebraska, also bypasses in front of Jackson Reed. And then it does this weird thing where it goes down Wisconsin Avenue for 3 blocks and then goes east on Van Ness and ends up in Van Ness Street, except for I believe it's a single school trip that will go down through Mount Pleasant, which covers another one of those bus routes, school bus routes. So it will end up in Mount Pleasant. This spot right here, this block is the block where all 4 of these C routes actually run. At this intersection, depending on which direction you're going in, is the only intersection in the northbound direction where all 4 of them share a single bus stop at Military Road, where Broad Branch Road comes in. So if you want to transfer between any of these buses, this is your little spot to do it. I think that takes care of the Chevy Chase buses. I'm just going to pause for a second to see if there's anything that needs to be clarified about these routes before I move on. And reminding, I will get into the bus stops once I get through this overview. Please raise your hand if you want to speak. Okay, so let's continue on. So down here we have, replacing the N246 combination, we have 2 routes. We have the D90, which starts at Tenleytown, not Friendship Heights. Disappointment to me a little bit. Goes down Wisconsin, but only to Nebraska. Then parallels the C81, runs alongside the C81 until it gets to New Mexico. Now, this is the only bus that will run along the upper part of New Mexico Avenue, past where the doctor's offices are. That's the D90. Then it goes in the opposite direction of the C85 on Cathedral to Massachusetts, down Massachusetts, and ends up going through town, through DuPont Circle, and ends up, it has its own little loop that it does around just east of Mount Vernon Square, not the metro station, but the actual square, Mount Vernon Square. And that's where the terminus is. So that's the D90 that replaces part of the N system. The other one is the D96, which I mentioned before, starts in Bethesda, goes down Wisconsin, and loops around the terminal and then goes to goes down Western Avenue to Westmoreland Circle, just like one of the N buses does now, straight down Massachusetts. Um, it- but then it follows this, then it goes down Idaho and then west on Cathedral, down New Mexico, and parallels along with the C85. So unlike the C85, which only runs in rush hour, these buses run all day, the D90 and the D96. And this one doesn't go all the way over here to MacArthur High School. It ends up going on Q Street to replace I forget what that's, the G2 or something, one of those routes that goes across town. It goes to Potomac Park, um, different part of Potomac Park. So that's the D96, and those take care of the N buses. Then we have, just for completeness, the bus that runs down MacArthur Boulevard, which is currently the D6, or used to be the D6, is now the D94. It just runs down MacArthur. They've removed a couple of stops from there. Does its zigzag on Reservoir, go Q Street, all that, and continues on to what looks like Metro Center here. Yeah. So that's the D94, which is the replacement for the D6. Now, a couple of other things I'll mention real quickly before I go into the details of these lines and the bus stops is there's a D72 which starts in Van Ness. Because the replacement for the L2, the D70, does not go to Adams Morgan, it in fact you need to have a way to get there. And so one way to do it is the D72, which goes down Connecticut to Porter, across Porter, through Mount Pleasant. It zigzags back on Columbia Road, back down to Connecticut, and then it ends up downtown here. Looks like this is McPherson Square. That looks like where that one ends up. And the D74, which comes from Brookland, goes across through the Washington Hospital Center and all of that, through Columbia Heights, also goes down Columbia Road and Connecticut Avenue. But when it gets to DuPont Circle, it switches to New Hampshire and goes over to the State Department and all of that. So it's a partial replacement for the L1 for those of you who took it. You have to transfer probably at Florida Avenue to be able to get that last little piece of it, but at least we've got service back from Connecticut Avenue to Foggy Bottom and the State Department. The only other ones that I'll mention are the C51. This is replacing the 96. C51 also starts in Tenleytown, comes straight down Wisconsin to Woodley, across Woodley, through Woodley Park, across the bridge, and then it goes all the way to Anacostia. I'll just say that much. It's a long route. It's one of those routes that I think, like the M22 to Olney, will be difficult for them to keep running on time, given the length of it and how many different places it has to go through. There's a C53, which is an all-night 24-hour service that'll run from Woodley Park, also across the bridge down U Street. These are Adams Morgan routes, U Street routes, New Jersey, I'm sorry, Florida Avenue. This replaces the 90, except now instead of stopping at the Ellington Bridge, it goes all the way across to Woodley. It starts at Woodley Park now. It ends up way down here. That ends up in Congress Heights, another very, very long route. But that runs one of the all-night buses along with the Wisconsin Avenue D80. And so there won't be any bus service on Van Ness Street. The H that was running along Van Ness is no longer, other than in rush hour, that little piece of the C87. I think that covers all the routes that affect us in our west of the park area. If you have another route you want me to talk about, we can ask that during the Q&A. Any questions about anything I said so far? Because now I'm going to go and switch to the details of the specific routes. All right. Hearing none, I'm going to try to race through these quickly. All right, so let me start with the C81. This replaces part of the E4 and most of the M4. Comes from across the park. The most significant change about this route, other than it runs every 20 minutes, which is really nice, is that they've removed a bunch of bus stops on Military Road. So there's between 27th Street, which is what turns over there by St. John's, to 31st Street, which is across the street from Temple Sinai, or in front of, depending on which direction you're going. There are no stops. We are going to be lobbying to get some service for Ingleside, but for now, the closest stop to Ingleside will be the one at the Temple Sinai intersection at 31st Street. It's not that bad. So that, other than that, I think most of these bus stops remain intact until you get to here, which is where normally the M4 would go behind Jackson Reed, past the Wawa and so forth. The C81 stays on Nebraska. So there's this big long gap between Nebraska and Chesapeake and the west side of Tenley Circle. It's about a 4/10 of a mile walk from this stop, the Chesapeake stop, to the metro station. It's a 2/10 of a mile walk from here, from the west side up to the metro station there. So if you're shopping at Whole Foods or doing anything like that, you have to pick one of these two stops, probably this one, to get back on to C81. It does make the loop around Sibley, which is not shown on this map. So now I'm going to get to the C83, which is the most interesting one in some ways. And so as I said, starts in Friendship Heights. There's a stop at Livingston Street that exists now. There's a stop at where 41st Western and McKinley all come together. And then the stop at 39th Street has been eliminated. So the next stop is Connecticut Avenue, but they're keeping both the Connecticut Avenue, when you're going in the westbound direction, the one in front of the community center and the one in front of Little Beast are both staying. So we still have both of those. Then the last stop on McKinley is at Chevy Chase Parkway. And this map is not drawn, it's just drawn to connect the bus stops, but in actuality, it goes to Nevada, down Nevada, and up to Military. And so then there's no stops between McKinley and Chevy Chase Parkway and Military and Nebraska. And then there's another long gap between there and a new stop that got put in, a new pair of stops that got put in at Nebraska and McKinley, presumably because there's nothing running across there now. And then the stop that's at the intersection where all the flexi posts are, there's a stop here at Nebraska and northbound stop at Nebraska and Utah. That's eliminated also. So after the McKinley Street stop, the next one is going to be the first one on Utah Avenue at Patterson Place. And then all the rest of the stops on Utah Avenue, all the rest of the stops on the Western Avenue, all the rest of the stops on Oregon Avenue have been kept. So they're staying. And that's partly because of years of lobbying by folks who live in that area to get that service preserved. So our next challenge is, what do we do about the rest of Chevy Chase? Then it comes back on Nebraska, and there's a new stop at 28th Street, just down the hill from Murray Field, and then it rejoins the loop. There is a stop at this intersection of Nebraska and Utah at Oliver Street, actually. That stop is also staying in effect. The reason you can't see it on this map is this is just the northbound direction. The C85 is the one that goes from Pinehurst Circle down, and it will not stop at the one in Nebraska and Oliver. So after Utah and Patterson, the next stop, well, there's a little paper sign up there now that Commissioner Laura Finney spotted that at the intersection of Nebraska and McKinley. So presumably the C85s will stop there in both directions. Remember, this is a rush hour bus only. And then it picks up at Military, Nebraska, and follows the rest of the thing. And as I said, this is the only bus route that will go behind Jackson Reed. It'll make the stop on Chesapeake and then make the stop on in front of the Wawa and then continue down from there. And here's the rest of that route. As you can see, it's got stops on Wisconsin Avenue. There's some interesting little gaps here and there. And then it finally ends up, after going to MacArthur High School, ends up, like I said, on the west side of the Foggy Bottom Metro. The C87, Silver Spring, straight down 16th, comes across Military, has that same gap between 27th Street and 31st Street on Military. There's just no stops at all there. Also bypasses Jackson Reed and the Tenley Metro, and then bounces off Wisconsin back to Van Ness. That's the C87. Here's the piece from Bethesda. This makes all the same stops that the 34 made. Goes down Westmoreland Circle, down Mass, etc. And then parallels the C85 through Grover Park, etc., etc. The D90, which starts at Tenleytown, and then that's the only one that has that New Mexico Avenue stop at Macomb, where you can go to your doctor's offices. And then that one continues on downtown. Here's the lower part of the D70. I did want to, and this is Florida Avenue and Connecticut. And there's no stops between here and here, which is M Street. So between Florida Avenue and M Street, there are no stops. Here's it blown up so you can really see it. Florida Avenue to M Street, no stops. Here's the M22, which is the one that goes from Bethesda up to Olney. I'm not going to show you the whole thing. There's a bit of difficulty if you're trying to transfer from the number 1 bus to this, because the stops are not right near each other on the 2 different lines there. And I think I'll hold off on the C51, C61, and the C53. So the last part of my presentation, which I did not get to last time, is the location of stops at the metro stations. So at Tenleytown, because so many routes are now starting from Tenleytown and not going up to Friendship Heights, there's a stop with 5 different lines on the northwest corner of Albemarle in Wisconsin. That has 5 different lines. If you're trying to get the C81, your nearest stop to this area is going to be the one on the west side of Tenley Circle. And this is exact replica of the sign that's physically located at the metro station. So it's exactly the same. C81, you have to get on the west side of Tenley Circle. Otherwise, your next stop is going to be Chesapeake, which isn't even on this map. The C85 you can catch at where the M4 used to stop, in front of the Wawa, or on the other side of the street of the divided street there. And I think that's about it for Tenleytown. And the only other one is the Friendship Heights one. And there are a couple of changes here. So where the E4 used to stop on Western Avenue, now the C83 replacement stops where the L8 used to be on the west side of the terminal on Wisconsin Avenue. It's actually closer to the shops on the Maryland side. And the D96 coming from Bethesda will loop around and stop where the E4 used to stop. And in the other direction, it will use the same stop as the C83 when you're going to Bethesda. So you can hop off the C83 and stand there at the same bus stop and catch the D96. The M82, which is a replacement for the T2, same as it was before, and everything else is pretty much the same. So I think that covers pretty much what I wanted to cover.
Okay, good, Cal. Let's open it up for questions. And if you have a question, raise your hand and I will unmute you. Okay, I see Diana Dorfman.
And I would request that you raise your hand using the reaction or the react thing at the bottom of your screen, and you click on that, and there's a raise your hand function. So it's easier to see you. We can't see all of you on the screen at the same time, so please use that.
Can I ask my question?
Yes, please.
Okay, if you're coming from Connecticut Avenue Extended, I know that there is a local Montgomery County bus.
Right.
Can you take that to Connecticut Avenue where the bus is going north? I didn't get the bus number. And then can you take that bus into the district down Connecticut Avenue to McKinley Street?
No, there's no bus that crosses the DC line on Connecticut Avenue. It's been 40 years since we've had that. 30 or 40 years.
So, okay, you're on Connecticut Avenue Extended. You're near Veers Mill Road.
Oh, way out there.
How can you get to Nebraska and Utah without making 4 changes?
I don't know you can. So you're at Connecticut and Veers Mill, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, so you would probably there's a ride-on bus whose number I don't know off the top of my head that you would take down to Wheaton. And then from there, you probably would take it down to Silver Spring, and then go from Silver Spring on the number 1, get off where McKinley Street, intersects Western, and switch to the C83, and that'll take you to Nebraska and Utah.
So it's 4 changes?
If the ride-on bus on Veers Mill only goes to Wheaton, then you'll have to change to a Metro bus, whose number I don't remember off the top of my head. That runs straight down Georgia Avenue, 4 buses with 3 transfers.
Okay.
Actually, I do have a ride-on map. I can look it up while.
So if they can take the ride-on to Wheaton, then they can change to a bus that will take them to Silver Spring. Can they then take the C87, which will go from Silver Spring to St. John's High School?
If it's rush hour.
Yes.
Yeah, in rush hour, absolutely. So, Benita, let me consult with that map while we're dealing with the next question, okay? And I'll
It's
get
the
back to you.
ride-on bus 40. I just looked it up on Trip Planner, Veers Mill Road. They actually suggest taking the ride-on bus 40 and then transferring to the red line, get off in Friendship Heights, and then take the C83 to Utah and Nebraska.
First.
Diane, were you able to unmute yourself?
Yes.
Excellent.
Okay. Can I talk?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Yes.
Okay. Quick comment, and one easy question. The D96 that starts in Bethesda and ends up at Potomac Park is a very long ride, at least an hour, I think. When you come up Wisconsin Avenue as you're heading towards Bethesda, I don't see that they can give time reliability on any line that is that long. That's just a comment. My question is, does the D96 go anywhere near 20th and K or within a few blocks?
Let me put up the D96 map again. This is certainly a different set of questions than we got the first time.
May I interject, please?
Sure.
It's better that D96, if you can get off somewhere and get the D80 on Wisconsin, and that'll take you to Pennsylvania, and you can get off at 22nd, 20th, and then you only have about a block to walk to K Street. This is a big problem. The Metro Trip Planner does not tell you that, because I get the D96 and they want me to go somewhere like on I and 19th and walk back over to K and 22nd for medical appointments. And if I wasn't familiar with how to do this prior to this change, they either have me doing that or ridiculously headed north, going to Friendship Heights Metro Station, and then getting on the Metro to go south. Go north to go south.
Can I please have an answer to my question?
So I'm putting up the map now so you can see it. So the D96 does run down. It looks like 19th in the northbound direction. I mean the southbound direction. 20th in the northbound direction to I Street. So it does pass the intersection of K. Now, whether there's an actual stop there, I would have to do a little
Thank you. No,
digging.
that's great. That's very helpful. That's just what I needed to know. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right. Next question would be from who was the next one up?
I
Deborah.
think I was, I think we're all sort of at different levels trying to learn about this whole new system. And we're all in a learning curve. And I wonder if we could have some suggestions either now or in whatever you're going to send out, a copy of this or a report or something like that, suggestions of ongoing sources of information, which are the good ones, and how do we access them for ongoing information and questions that we will undoubtedly have going forward. Can you help us with that?
So after this meeting, probably within the next few days, we'll be sending out an email to everybody who attended the call with some resources, including stuff that we're putting up on our Phobos wiki. That includes some basic things and some of the tools. And like Jim said, we're going to have another session in a couple of weeks to get feedback from y'all. And I'm not going to do this presentation again. We're going to
Deborah, let me ask you, are you familiar with the WMATA website and the trip planner and those resources?
Yeah, I've used them. The WMATA website. Yeah, I was using that. I've been using that, but trip planner sounds like it needs some improvements from what people have said.
Well, it's not perfect. I have been using it for years, but I find it's pretty good.
Okay.
And so it's a good place to start. And if that does not work, then we need a deeper dive, and we'll work on that. But that's where I would start.
Okay, good. And will you put those on with the links when you send out this
Yeah,
information?
yes, we
Great.
will.
Perfect. Thank you so
Yep.
much.
go to WMATA.com. You can't miss it. It's like Trip Planner is like one of the first things you'll see on the main
Well,
page.
to get to Trip Planner, after you go to the WMATA website, you have to then go to the tab that says Schedules and Maps. It's a tab right after the WMATA website. You get on there. And then
Right.
under schedules and maps, you'll see trip planner. That's how you
Okay.
get to it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
I want to tell you a little trick about using the trip planner, which is that if you adjust the start or end time of your trip, because you can specify when you want to arrive or when you want to leave, if you adjust those by a few minutes, you can get a completely different trip sometimes. So if you're
Mhm.
happy with the one you get, change the time a little bit and try it again.
Yeah, I've done that. That works.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question is Kay Maloney.
Hi there. Thanks very much for your advocacy. And I look forward to the next meeting where we can make some suggestions. But I had a couple of questions in case I can't make that, and maybe I can also write to you guys. But
Yeah.
a common theme here that everybody's bringing up is how many connections and how much longer the lines have gotten. That's been my experience, almost doubling some of my rides. So question number one is, has there been any discussion of lengthening the window of free transfer time, given how much more time we're now spending in transit? For example, if I used to be able to run somewhere and then get back in my 2 hours, and now I definitely can't. And if it's my husband and I doing it, that's $9 of bus fare. Guess what I'm doing? I'm getting in my car and we're driving and we're parking for that. So it's been
Yeah.
completely antithetical in my lived experience to actually take me off the road. I'm very pro bus. I barely drive. My car stays in the garage. I'm already driving more in these couple of weeks. So that's question number one. If you want to answer that first. Question number two.
Yeah, well, Kay, I want to ask, I'm very sorry to hear that.
Yep.
That's a problem. Can I ask you, where are you going that is taking so much longer?
Primarily to Farragut West, and that was my next question. For example,
Okay.
coming home from DCA the other night, our flight was late. First of all, that wonderful Connecticut Avenue N246 that used to put us right to the Farragut West train entrance that we could then take out to DCA. Connecticut Avenue no longer runs anymore, and by the time we were off our flight, the new connection bus to bus, if I had wanted to take Orange Line to then the D74 to the D90, even if I'd wanted to do 3 transits, it wasn't running anymore. The D90 is stopping at about, I think it's 9:58 p.m., right? So another problem is late night service. But
Why can't you take the D70 to get to Farragut?
Before you answer that, where are you coming? Where are you?
well,
where's the
I
other-
don't want to nuts and bolts this. I've teased
Where's
out a
the
lot
other
of
end?
different ways. So then there's the D96.
Where are you starting from? That's the question.
I'm in Cathedral Heights, and I used to take the N2 really beautifully, or 4 or 6 down
Oh.
Massachusetts and then down Connecticut. As you know, it no longer turns down Connecticut. So my next option is the D96, which is now a 42-minute ride from my corner to where I go in Farragut for some meetings, and it used to be about 25 minutes. So that's another extension. So these are 2 already in these few weeks experiences that is forcing me into either a lift or into a car. So I'm working with it, but I want to know if there's been any discussion about extending the windows of transfer time to accommodate us if we're willing to sit on a bus for 40 minutes, can spend the time to sit on a bus for 40 minutes in each direction. Can we at least get our transfer still? So that's number one. And then I was curious if there's still any discussion about returning a bus to Connecticut Avenue, because, I don't, necessarily say that Lower Massachusetts didn't deserve to be served with a direct bus. But the loss of Connecticut Avenue routing to me is pretty significant. And then the third is, how do we get shelters for stops that have now become more important but don't have any benches, don't have any covering? Because I got soaked waiting for that 96 or walking to the D80 now. I have the 96 in front of my house, but it's a 40-minute ride. Or I can walk to the D80, but that was a 10-minute walk. So I got wet either way because I have no shelter. So those are my 3 questions.
Okay, but Kay, you said there's a loss of buses on Connecticut Avenue. We still have the D70 on Connecticut Avenue.
Well, it doesn't connect well to me. I'm going to go look at the D70. I've been looking at the 74. Maybe it's the timing, but
The
The
D70 runs
No, that doesn't
from,
go, no, sorry. I mean Lower Connecticut, below Farragut. I live over in Cathedral Heights, so the D70 continues straight up. It doesn't go to Cathedral Heights anymore. The Massachusetts N2, 4, and 6 used to go down, for example, between Wisconsin and DuPont Circle, was a nice stretch of Massachusetts, and then it would turn south to go down Connecticut to get to Farragut. So it was basically a nice connection from our northwest Cathedral area to Farragut, and that no longer exists.
Okay.
You're talking
Okay.
about the piece of the N buses that ran from DuPont Circle down to,
Correct, to
Farragut?
Farragut.
okay.
Correct. So it's that stretch, yeah. So, I'm looking at the D70 and confirming. I've been, toying with trying the D74. For example, from Foggy Bottom, I could have gotten off there from DCA, except that I couldn't connect to the D90 anymore because that bus had stopped running at 10 p.m.
Okay.
So, there, and even if I want to do a connection at DuPont, it's usually, about a 15-minute wait. And so that's, this nice N246 that it's continuing down to Mount Vernon Square. To me, the loss is Connecticut Avenue, and whether there's been any discussion of returning that.
So let me say a couple of things. One is, this is great fodder for our feedback session, and we will be having a feedback form around the same time for people who don't make it to the session or just prefer, you could submit your feedback in about the particular stuff. And the answer is, I don't believe there's been any conversation about extending the transfer time, but I think it's a great suggestion. And it's something that we will certainly take up, because if these
Yeah.
trips, if they're going to keep the schedules like this, then people are going to need more time. It's very frustrating. I am frustrated, and I don't even have, my trips aren't even that long. I will mention,
Oh, and we've seen this coming, and we're taking a step back and trying to work with it and trying to live with it. But so far, really, literally, it was cheaper to drive downtown and park for the two of us than to take a 2-swipe round trip. 225 times 4 versus a $4 meter. So it's not conducive to those of us who actually don't want to drive. So
Right.
anyway, yes, I'm glad you're frustrated. Thank you. Go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say also be aware that WMATA makes changes on a semi-annual basis. So this change went into effect on the last Sunday of June. The next changes will go into effect on the next to the last Sunday in December. So what they're doing is they're going to be evaluating the operation of the new system and making some changes on their own, but we're going to be in there, shoehorning what we can to get the changes that, and so some of the changes you're talking about are not, they'll like to hear that because they're not about this particular bus stop or this particular route, even though that's useful. This is a systemic thing you're talking about.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And so so that's different. We can give that kind of feedback in a way that is harder to do as an individual. Go ahead.
And Kay, I appreciate your remark about bus shelters.
Yes.
And it would be helpful if you write down where you think bus shelters should be placed, where they are not. And it's something I care about because I live near Military in Nebraska, which is, I call it now Grand Central Station for Chevy Chase. All 4 of our bus lines stop at Military in Nebraska. There is no bus shelter there. And that is just, to me, that's ridiculous. They need to put shelters there. But there are other places that need shelters too. And it would help us to get some specific recommendations on that, Kay. Thank you.
So
That
I'm
would be
going to
great.
put our email address that we use to bring for people to input stuff to us in the chat. It's not really a substitute for coming to the event in a couple of weeks or filling out the form, but at least it gets on our radar, if nothing else. So here it is. Let's see, make sure I spell it right. Yep. Okay. So, that's that. Are we complete with you?
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, happy to share this and good to know about the timing. You know, I went to my ward representative. I got emails of 3 people at WMATA and wrote, one of them was a lack of a stop problem, but that kind of got fixed indirectly and inadvertently. But my other request was the shelter, and I have not even been acknowledged, and I sent 2 emails. And that's disappointing and frustrating. So I appreciate you guys.
So I
Okay.
want to get back to Benita. I think it was Benita who was asking the question about Veers Mill Road. And there are actually 4 bus lines that run down Veers Mill Road. And 1 bus line, you can actually come down, I don't know whether these are rush hour only, probably not. There's actually a bus line that goes down Connecticut Avenue that substitutes that's going to be the replacement for the L8. It's the 41, but that only goes to Kensington and then loops around Pliers Mill and back up to Wheaton. There's 4 bus lines, 1 of the Metro bus, 3 of them ride on. They all that go down Veers Mill Road, they all end at Wheaton. So you'll have to get to Silver Spring or somewhere down here, you'll have to transfer at Wheaton probably. So you're looking at a potentially 4 bus ride to get from Connecticut and Veers Mill to Nebraska and Utah.
And
Terrible.
it takes 2 hours.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. Yep. I sent someone on a trip late at night that I thought would take them 3 hours, and I wasn't even clear where she was going. And it was unfortunate because I didn't speak Spanish and was having difficulty. Okay. Any other questions? I don't see any hands up.
Okay.
Jim, you want to say anything?
Yeah, I would especially like to get feedback from the people who have left the call. But I realize that is
It's going to be
metaphysically impossible.
it's going to be in the thank you letter, Jim. I'm going to add it in the thank you letter.
Okay.
Lori,
has her
Lori,
hand up.
you have your hand up, Lori.
Oh, one final. Okay, this will be the last question then. Lori, can you unmute yourself?
I put it in the chat, but I use Google Maps for planning my transit, movements rather than the trip planner from WMATA. And I've had really good luck with Google Maps, and I just would be happy to show others if they're not using it, how it can be very useful. Just putting in one address and to the other and clicking on the transit button instead of the drive button. I know maybe some people have used it for driving, but anyway, I didn't hear that mentioned. It was all about the trip planner, which I find a little awkward to use, especially if you're out and about, but if you have the Google Maps app on your phone, it makes it very convenient to choose different routings, and they're also very good about showing like if a bus is running late. Maybe for a future session, if there's interest, I'd be happy to introduce people to that. I for the village, I've been doing some volunteer driving, and one of my service recipients and I were talking about all the new bus routes, and I showed her how to use Google Maps, and she was very happy. So anyway, just thought I would mention that.
Well, thank you. And when you
That's a
say
great-
village,
Yeah, thanks.
I assume you mean the Northwest Neighbors Village?
I'm actually in the Glover Park Village.
Oh, okay. Got
Okay.
it. And I wanted
Okay.
to say, there's also Apple, if you're on an Apple device, a Mac or iPhone, there's Apple Maps, which actually got there first before Google Maps did. There was a little glitch for a while, for about a week, where Google Maps was showing both the old and the new routes and the old and new stops, and making it look like there was a lot more service than there really was, but they got that fixed. And maybe we could do a session just on tools at some point. I want
Yeah.
to mention one more, which is Metro Pulse. Now, this is still a work in progress. This is what WMATA is trying to do. Actually, I'll mention 2 more. Metro Pulse is their They want you to use that as your go-to app for everything Metro. I find it notably more awkward than the trip planner, which is saying something. The other one I want to mention is good old Bus ETA, which is a web page, buseta.wamata.com. Still my favorite. I still use it. I bookmark different pages for different bus stops so I can jump around to see if I miss a bus, where else can I catch a bus and things like that, or what other bus can I catch. And it's kind of harder to do that on the Metro Pulse app. Jim, you wanted to say something?
No, you said what I was going to say. I have used those apps and they can be helpful. I've used them when I've been traveling, but you know, you can certainly use them here too. And I think
Yeah.
we should do something on that. Yeah.
Yeah, Lori, one of the reasons we didn't talk about that is because the primary reason for this call was to get information, get people unconfused. That's what we advertised, and so we need to focus all of our energy on that. And the trip planner just came up with an incidental thing. John?
I wanted to second the discussion of Google Maps. One of the things I like about it is it looks at the different ways of transit. So it'll have bus, subway, and feet. And one of the irritating things I've seen with the Metro Trip Planner is it pretty much thinks you're not willing to walk. And so if there's a bus that goes right by you, but it's going to take you 45 minutes longer, it still may recommend you do that than walk 2 blocks and save those 45 minutes. So the Google Maps and Google Maps is also very real-time oriented. And so that's a lot of times is my first place to go. And then I may refine it in other ways.
Yeah, thank you for that, John. And I'll also add that my experiences with the trip planner, specifically in Chevy Chase, are very weird. I've tried to plan a trip from Nevada and Oliver to Ingleside, and it wanted me to take a westbound bus, the C-83 to Connecticut, the southbound bus, the D-70 to Nebraska, and the C-81. It was like, that's ridiculous. 3 buses to go a mile and a quarter or something like that, a mile and a half. The opposite is true. You can actually tell the trip planner how far you can walk.
Street northwest toward Livingston Street north.
You can tell the trip planner how far you can walk, a quarter mile, half a mile, 3/4 of a mile, and it will respect that. All of the tools still are trying to get used to, including Google Maps, are trying to get used to the new network. I think they did a really good job of seamlessly, as close to seamless as possible, getting all these tools, especially the Apple Maps and the Google Maps, onto the new network. With Apple Maps, it was immediate and complete, and with Bus ETA, it was immediate and complete. Google Maps had to iron out that one glitch, but they were online in a few days. I think that was a remarkable job considering everything changed, including the bus stops, the route numbers, the routings and all that,
Yeah.
the timings.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, well, we've been on this call for an hour and a half, so I want to thank everyone who joined us, as well as CCCA, and we will be in touch with you all soon, and we will be keeping at it. So good night, everyone.
And you can send us email at the FOBUS input address I put in the chat.
Right.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.